Man, I can't believe we're on chapter 16. Um, wow. Okay. Had to go. Ow. Do something with my dog. I hear the... Natalie read slowly, moving her fingertips at a snail's pace across the workbook's bumpy braille. It was still an incredible challenge, but the amazing thing, it was actually starting to make some sense. M-U-S... Music! I hear the music! Good, Miss Karen exclaimed. Natalie pulled her hands back. But look how slow I'm going, she said. I mean, I could never read an entire book like this. Oh, but you will, Miss Karen assured her. Eve is reading one of the Harry Potter books right now. In fact, she left it on my desk. Miss Karen turned around to retrieve the book and put it in Natalie's hands. Wow! Whoa! Natalie exclaimed, setting it down because it was so heavy. Which story is this? She asked. She'd read the entire series herself, using her magnifier the entire way. See if you can read the title. See if you can read the title, Miss Karen said. Natalie sat up and positioned both hands on the cover. Slowly, she moved her fingertips forward. The O-R. The R was easy, because it actually looked like an R. D-O-O-R-D. Ord. Order. The Order of the Phoenix. Right. But just the first volume, said Miss Karen said. The entire story is actually 13 volumes in Braille. Natalie was stunned and awed by the thought of wading through the enormous ocean of bumps for pleasure. How could anyone? And yet, she looked up. Miss Karen, who sat across from her, knew Braille so well she could read it upside down while facing Natalie. I don't understand, Natalie said. How in the world do you do it? Do what, Natalie? Everything. I mean, not just Braille. But you went to college. And now you ride 2 different buses and walk a whole mile by yourself to get to work every day. You make it seem so easy. Miss Karen made a funny noise, like a snort. I don't know about the easy part, she said. Gosh, how do I do it? Long story, but I'll make it short. Like you, Natalie, I had vision when I was younger, but I was born with retinitis pigmentosis. Sorry. It's a hereditary disease. My grandmother had it, my aunt has it, but my sister never got it. Where is the justice, right? When I was 15, I lost everything. I was in high school then, and boy, what a difficult time that was. Still difficult, more difficult in some ways. Than my life now. More difficult? More difficult? What do you mean? Natalie asked. Because I felt as though I lived between 2 worlds. I went to a high school. where basically I knew my way around and not everyone knew I was losing my sight. I used to sit in class and pray that no one would call on me to read. I needed large print everything, but I didn't want the kids to see my large print books, so I didn't even take them out of my backpack. I'd lie and say I forgot them. Then, of course, it was hard getting through the hallways if I didn't have a friend with me. I couldn't have asked to leave class early in order to avoid those crowded halls, but I didn't want to stand out. Exactly. It's how Natalie felt. It's why she had used her friends to get around too. Even now, she didn't plan to use a cane when she returned to Western Allegheny High. She didn't want to become known as the blind girl. Most of the kids didn't know she had a vision problem. I remember, Miss Karen went on, how at lunch or in study hall or if I was outside waiting for my mom to pick me up, I pretended that I was just looking down and reading so I'd have an excuse for not seeing someone. I wasted so much time pretending, she said. I just decided one day I wasn't going to live that way anymore. I mean, when I say it, Natalie, I mean that when I say it, Natalie. Miss Karen leaned forward and placed a hand on Natalie's, which rested on the Braille book between them. It is easier to be blind than pretend you're not blind. At teen group that afternoon, the students talked about activities they might do together, including ice skating, windsurfing, hiking, bowling, and sailing a skipjack in the Chesapeake Bay. Natalie sat silently, wondering how in the world they could bowl if they couldn't see the pins. And ice skating? Yikes. Yet these were activities that the kids routinely did year after year. It confused Natalie. She would have to find an excuse not to go, and added a whole new layer of fear to the one she was already tamping down. After burgers and boxed drinks, the kids split up into small groups to play Uno. Even Bree sat in on a game, with a little help from Sheldon on reading the Braille labels on each card. Natalie was glad that Bree was slowly becoming part of the group. Back in the dorm room, Natalie and Bree often talked, comparing notes on teachers. Miss Karen was awesome, they both agreed. Mr. Joe in American government was tough, but smart. And really cute, too. The music they enjoyed. Bree loved hip-hop and rap, while Natalie was a shameless country fan. And food in the dining hall. The school's chicken was gross. No question about it. But they loved the tacos and the macaroni and cheese. One evening, Bree asked Natalie about the framed pictures on the wide bureau top they shared. Can you tell me who's in them? Sure, Natalie said. She knew the pictures by heart. The biggest one is of my mom, Dad, and me at my honor society induction, And then there's one of my best friend Meredith and me dressed like cats for Halloween. The picture in the sparkly frame is of me and my pet goat, Nuisance, and your goat? Bree laughed, interrupting. You're serious? You have a goat? I live on a goat farm. Aw. Do they have names? Wow, we have about 80 goats now. They don't all have names, but some of the older ones do. Let's see, there's Jasmine. She was one of the first goats we owned. Then there's Morning Dew, Tootsie, Joy, and Joss, Joy and Jess, Lacey, Crayola, Lacy Bones. Our two bucks are Bucky and Buddy. Do you mean Billy goats? Actually, male goats are bucks, not billies. Everybody thinks the females are called nanny goats, but excuse me, but they're not. They're does. They're does, like deer. Are they nice, Natalie? Sorry. Are they nice, Natalie? Bree asked. Are the goats friendly? Very friendly. The only thing a goat loves more than another goat is a person. They hate being alone. They're very curious and smart, too. There was a pause. I don't have any pictures with me, Bree said. Why would I, right? But if I did, I would have a picture of my aunt, because she has taken care of me ever since I was 10. That was about a year before my mother died. And I would have a picture of my boyfriend, Kirk. I don't really have any friends. Natalie wondered what she meant by that. But you have Kirk, she said. You're very lucky. I've never had a boyfriend. Well, I don't know if I'm so lucky. I think he sticks around out of pity more than anything else. I'm sure he blames himself for the accident. A car accident? Natalie asked gently. But Bree didn't answer. She rolled over on her bed and didn't say another word. Natalie let the question drop and went to brush her teeth. There was a lot to think about on the long bus ride home. The week behind her, the weekend coming up at home. She would run her secret vision test in the morning, but Natalie didn't think things had worsened. As long as she had that tiny, precious sliver of sight, she could get by. She even thought she could make a deal with God about this, and while the bus groaned its way over one of the steepest mountains toward the end of the trip, Natalie squeezed her eyes shut, pressed her hands together in her lap, and implored silently, "Let me keep what I have, and I promise to have a good attitude. I will learn what I have to, and I will help others." In the morning, the window test confirmed her vision hadn't changed. And Natalie figured that maybe God was listening. Maybe there would be a deal. I think I've never seen this word in my life. Buoyed. 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 I don't know what word that is. Buoyed by the thought and the fact that her shoulder felt so much better. She didn't need the sling. Natalie rushed downstairs, hoping it wasn't too late to accompany her mother to the farmer's market. Her mother was glad for the help. "What about your cane?" she asked, as she stood by the kitchen door, waiting for Natalie to put on her hat. "Don't need it," Natalie replied crisply. "Really? Even after the fall at school?" "Mom, I don't need it here," she shot back, knowing full well she probably did. She added softly, "I just don't want people seeing it. Not yet." Her mother didn't say anything more. But sitting in the front seat of the van a few minutes later, Natalie could feel her mother's disapproval. All Natalie would do at the market was put cheese into plastic bags and stuff in a flyer. Why would her mother care if Natalie had her cane or not? After arriving at the market, they set up a folding table and 2 chairs at the back of the van. Then, before the first customers arrived, Natalie's mother dashed off to trade goat cheese for an Amish apple pie. While she was gone, a familiar voice said, "Hello." Startled, Natalie turned toward the voice. "It's Jake Handelman from school." Still unable to see him, Natalie continued bravely to look in the direction of his voice and greeted him warmly. "Hi." "So, how's it going?" "Good," she told him. She hoped to high heaven she was looking in his direction. "How about you?" "Fine, I guess. Heavy workload this year." Finally, yes, she was able to glimpse part of him. She was looking at him. "Me too. A lot of homework." "What are you taking?" "Oh, let's see. I'm taking American government and English. We're doing Shakespeare." She hoped that would suffice. She certainly didn't want to mention the Braille or orientation and mobility and her dreaded meetings with a social worker. "Cool," Jake replied. "Do you come home every weekend?" Natalie nodded. "Yes, every weekend." "Well, heck, there's a football game tonight. I still play in the band. Are you coming?" "I have my license now. I could pick you up." Pick her up? That sounded like a date. "That's really nice of you," Natalie began. "But a football game at night? No way." "I can't," she told him. "Not this weekend." "Oh, okay. Well, maybe another time." "Sure, that'd be fun," Natalie agreed, although she knew she didn't mean it. It would be terribly awkward, and she would be terrified. "Take care, Nat." She smiled. "See ya." Jake Handelman had asked her to the football game, right? Maybe. Or maybe he was just being nice. She wondered how Meredith would assess the situation. Thank goodness Jake hadn't wanted to buy any cheese, she thought. She wouldn't have been able to deal with the money. It would have been so embarrassing. Miss Karen's words. Miss Karen's words walked out and stood in front of her like little protesters in her own mind, waving signs. It is easier to pretend to be blind than to pretend you're not. You're not blind. Angry, Natalie shook her head and knocked the little protesters out of her mind. She readjusted the brim of her hat and tightened the elastic in her ponytail. Living between two worlds, she pressed her lips together. Where in the devil was her mother? What was taking her so long? Later in the morning, Professor Bronsky from Frostburg University stopped by. Natalie had helped him in his campaign for state senator during the summer. She stood to shake hands with him and listened as he tried to convince her mother to sign a petition banning wind power turbines in state parks. I'm not against wind power. Now, don't get me wrong, he pointed out. I just don't want to see those huge turbines spoiling the view of our western Maryland's mountaintops. You know what I mean, Jean? Natalie's mother signed the petition, but Natalie wasn't old enough. Stay in touch with me, the professor told Natalie. He touched her shoulder. After I'm elected, I'm going to need some good interns the next couple years in Annapolis. Where the state legislature meets. Where the state legislature meets. Natalie smiled at his optimism and his offer, but swallowed hard. I guess he doesn't know about my sight, she said to her mother after he had left. Not true. Dad and I saw him at the firehouse barbecue. He knows. He does. All about it, her mother confirmed. Sunday morning came way too fast. The only bright spot was that Meredith was expected for blueberry pancakes. Natalie was hoping there would be time for a short walk, even just to the barn, so she could tell Meredith about the cane and her roommate, about running into Jake at the farmer's market, and about Arnab and how he always found a seat on the bus next to her. Along about 11 o'clock, however, the phone rang. Meredith had overslept. Nat, I'm really sorry, she apologized. I should have told my mom to get me up. Now I have to get ready. This guy, Richard, is coming. Richard? Who's Richard? This kid at school. He's nice. Yeah. Anyway, a bunch of us are going down to the lake. They have a boat rental for noon. Oh. I'm so sorry, Nat. If I hadn't overslept, we would have more time together. It is totally my fault. It was Meredith's fault. But what was Natalie supposed to do about it? Make her feel guilty for having a real date with a boy? On the bus on the way back to school, Natalie took the Hope Stone out of her pocket and sat mindlessly rubbing it and wondering if God took their deal seriously, while she stared out of the bus window. Her view was nothing but a gray-green blur. but old habits died hard. If there was a window, you looked out. She thought back to Miss Audra talking about clues and landmarks, how the landmarks were permanent, but how clues changed and couldn't be counted on. She guessed that, like clues, there were other things in her life she couldn't count on either.